So we are trying to read the flood story the way ancient Israel read it and understood it, and the way Moses intended it to be understood. We are looking at a culture who thought differently to us. They're 3,500 years ago. Middle Eastern people who traveled through the desert with tents. And we think that a phrase they used is exactly how we use it today. No, we have to climb back into their minds. So what we're doing in this series is asking the question, ancient Israel were the ones who got this story, written by an ancient Israelite, Moses. How did they understand this? And we've seen that what God allows is described as him actively doing. Well, is there any indication at all from the flood story itself that God, even though he says, I will send the flood, that he actually withdrew? Yes, we do. Have a look at Genesis chapter 6, verses 5 and 11. Let's see why first, why the flood was sent. This is important to understand. And then we'll see if there's any hints in there that God actually withdrew and then the flood came. Yeah? Genesis 6, 5 and 11. Why did the flood take place in the first place? Verse 5. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth. Global evil and wickedness had taken over the planet. Pretty desperate, eh? Verse 11. How exactly were they wicked? Verse 11. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight. The whole lot. And the earth was filled with violence. Oh. Global evil and violence had taken control of planet Earth. They sowed violence and they reaped a violent flood. Does it say here that God withdrew? Yes, it does. Genesis 6:3, English Standard Version. Listen. Then the Lord said, my spirit will not abide in man forever. God withdrew his spirit because of the global violence. God removed his spirit. And when he did that, chaos was released and the flood came. But Santo doesn't say there that he hid his face. The phrase to withdraw the spirit means the same thing as to hide your face. Let me give you one example, and there are a number in the Old Testament. Psalm 51:11, English Standard Version. Notice how the phrases to be not in God's presence or in God's face is face. The Hebrew word for face and presence exactly the same. So some translations will say presence and some will say face, and even I've used it like that. When God hides his face, he withdraws his divine presence, protective presence. Psalm 51:11. Look at the parallel statements between being cast away from God's face or presence means to have the Holy Spirit removed. Same thing. 51:11 says this, David, cast me not away from your presence, from your face. Don't remove your face from me. Don't remove your presence from me. Right? Cast me not away from your presence, your face, and take not your Holy Spirit from me. Oh, to take away the Spirit means to be cast away from God's face, presence. To take away the Spirit means God has hidden his face. To take away the Spirit means that God has been removed. His face, his presence has been removed. Cast me not away from your presence, comma, do not take your Spirit from me. To lose the face or presence of God is the same thing as having the Spirit taken from you. So we were reading Genesis 6:3, that God said, my Spirit is not going to stay here. When he pulls away his Spirit, do not cast me away from your presence. Face. God removed his presence, his face, when he removed his spirit. They are two different ways of saying the same thing. You will see that couplet all the way through the Old Testament, where face and spirit are put in parallel. To have the spirit is to have the face. To not have the spirit is to not have his presence. More next time, when we look at, well, if God didn't send the flood, who sent it? Do we know? Well, we know from Moses' definition that Israel will say when the wrath of God falls, have not all these disasters come upon us because God is not among us? Then who were the external powers that sent the flood? Next time.